Hello, hello. It is Friday the 13th, and I hope I can get a few viewers to join me for the live stream because at the end I will be doing some logic puzzles and I'll want some help because I'm not very good at that. And that'll be our actually youngest solitaire game because today is all about solitaire games. And while I don't exactly mean solitaire games that you play with a regular deck of cards, I mean more advanced games, I did want to bring attention to this book. We have other activity books like this in Blue Highway that are good for playing card games solo. I also wanted to show off my fanciest deck of cards because I need people to appreciate the shiny unicorn deck. Wait for it. The cards themselves are shiny. So if you watch this and go, I'm not really interested in these type of solo games, I'd rather just play some good old-fashioned solitaire. That is something that we have at store and lots of decks of cards. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with a good game of solitaire. I love regular good old-fashioned solitaire, and this has introduced me to different ways of playing with a regular 52 deck of cards. It's honestly could keep you entertained with one deck of cards forever. I don't know why I own like 60 decks of cards, but they're fun and shiny. All right, so the first games that we have, I'm gonna break them down in kind of two categories, well three, because I got the kids one at the end, but ones that are sort of solitaire in and of themselves, straight out of the rulebook. You read the rulebook and you can play on your own as written, as well as play with other people. And one of them is more just meant for solitaire, but I'll get back to that. And then the other ones are games that have pretty rich, complex games for like 2 to 4 players, but then also have a separate set of rules on top of that for solitaire play, which kind of adds in a little bit of a learning curve, but is also kind of a very rewarding, rich experience. I also have pictures today, so while I can show you fun boxes and hold up pieces, hopefully the pictures I have for you will get you be able to see in a little bit closer. Trois. I'm not French, nor do I speak anything close to it, but Trois Dice is a game that had some other games which I own already here on my shelves. Regular Trois, an expansion, and then Tournée, which is a sort of set in that universe. This is, of course, one that I had to pick up because I love that universe. Kind of Middle Ages, Black Plague, destroying your town, events that attack everybody that is playing. And that is the same here in this. You do not have to have played any of those bigger games in order to enjoy this. The other thing that you'll know if you've watched any of these streams is that I also love it because it is a roll and write. So it does come with sheets for you to fill out. I have played a few times and my scores are not very good. But it does come with this large sheet that you can then use to keep track of your score. The rest of the game is just really a wheel that has little plazas that are around in the town square of different colors, and then die that are lovely little translucent die. And I promised you pictures, so let's take a look here. So this is a game in action. You've got your sheet and you've got these plazas around the central circle, and then you have the die that are going to get rolled and placed around the outside in the different plazas. So as I said before, this is one where when you read the rule set to play solitaire, you just actually follow the regular rules of the game, because when players are taking actions in a multiplayer game, you're taking those actions simultaneously. So without going into all the details, essentially with this one, you at the start of the game choose a numbering system for each of the colors yellow, red, and white, and then you add them onto your sheet. They'll be the same in each of the columns. And then when you roll the die, you are going to place them in the dark or light side of that round circular board from low to high. And then there's a value of denier, the money that you need to pay in order to activate that die. The color, they're translucent because the color that they're sitting on is effectively the color that they are. So if it's a 2 on a white plaza, you have a 2 white die. If it's a 2 on yellow, you would have a 2 yellow die. Now this picture, I guess, is a little bit maybe erroneous or misleading, but the black die is sort of that event die, that plague die, the one that sort of is the event for all players. So of course with solo, it's just going to affect you. But you can't use that color plaza. And in fact, these little tokens, they are double-sided. So after the round in which they were attacked and you weren't able to use it, it will flip to a different color, and it kind of keeps the board from being static and changing. You take your actions, which are kind of building fortresses or getting some victory points in the yellow section, or end game scoring in the white section by building cathedrals. You're also collecting citizens and town folks, which are going to get you different things if you collect sets of them, as well as just be victory points for all the citizens in your town. And each of the different colors, you'll also be collecting those resources like the flags, the coins, and the little Bibles, I think there. You can spend those to, I'm so bad at this always. You can spend like red flag if you collect them to adjust a die roll to a different number, and you can spend money to be able to buy the die, and you can spend the little faith books to be able to change the color of the die that you are looking at. So you have some control. You're not just left up with the die. But playing it as a solitaire game is the same experience as playing it with a group of people. There is no difference. That really. There is also, I don't think I had it in that picture, but there are some of these little flag tiles. There's quite a few of them, and you can add those to the outside of the board to 3 of the locations for a more advanced play that gives secondary actions when you end up taking the actions in the die from that specific location. So it's a good little roll and write. It's not overly complicated, but it's not super simple. I mean, it took me a good 20 minutes to figure it out, and it's about 15-minute game to play once you know, so it's quite quick. The centerpiece will actually rotate itself, kind of marking down the number of turns. And yeah, so I thought that was a great one, and I have copies of this at the store. It is going for $24.99. Of course, this week will be on sale. All right, the next one is also one that is mostly just for 1 to 2 players. It's called Sylvian. If you're not familiar, there's this whole kind of universe, this set of games. I think there's 3 or 4 now. Oniverse, and each of the games are really meant for 1. They do give you rules for playing with 2 players as a partnership, but they're cooperative in that sense that you're both still trying to achieve the same goals. And I'm actually going to show you the cool box because I think it's one of the coolest box features. So when you open it, this is what you see. The game is about a forest that is going to be burned down by the evil fire. And to open it, I am easily amused. You have to take the fire away, and then you have the rule book, and then the cards are underneath. The cards themselves, there's kind of the burning flame forest cards. Those are the bad cards. And then you have forest cards, which are your trees, your water fountains, and your animals that are going to help protect your forest. So let's take a look at some of those here. This is, of course, not with the box in the middle of the board, but the game's set up for you, and it'll look, for those of you who play card solitaire, probably the closest to a traditional card set of games like solitaire, because it is all just done with these cards. And on the right hand side there, those monster flame cards. It's got really funky art, so it kind of looks like a little flame monster. When the box is not in the center, you're going to flip over those bad flame cards, and they're going to have numbers on them that are going to start sliding to the left, moving towards the edge of the play area. There's 4 rows and 4 columns. They'll move across those rows in each of those columns each turn, sometimes sped up with special actions. Sometimes they'll become even more deadly, which are those darker flame cards on the left-hand side there. And then the tree cards are cards that you'll have in your hand. And after they're moving, you're going to be able to play down those cards in order to block the flames as they advance across the way. The object is to have all the outside cards, those red and green ones, not the monster ones, flipped over to the green by the end of the game. And that's done by putting out trees that don't get swallowed up by fire, because they have different values that at the end of the game, if they're still standing, they'll turn red outside cards over to the green side. But as flames move across the board, when they reach the outside, they will flip them the other way. And if at any point all of the cards on the outside are flipped to the red side, you immediately lose the game and have to try again. On the right hand side, there's the little monster token and then 4 other decks. There are advanced cards for both the tree, your deck, and the flame deck, as well as 2 expansions that are included in the box. I've actually only played this on the base game because I still can't beat it. I'm not very good. I haven't tried any of the advanced or the expansion cards, so I can't really speak to that. I will say the art on it is really funky. I have a picture here of a little elephant. If you can see, he's kind of a little abstract, very impressionistic elephant there. And animals will come to your rescue. So instead of just putting out the trees for the end game or fountains to try to block the fire, animals will even go so far as to remove flames, things like that. And here's a little example of the game as the flames are advancing across the table towards my poor forest that you can see has quickly been turning red. Like I said, I don't win this very often and or ever. So that is another game that is pretty much just straight out of the box. In fact, the rules for multiple players are the additional rules that you would have to read if you wanted to play with more than one player. So it's really just meant to be a solitaire experience. It is challenging. It doesn't take long once you play. I'll say the rulebook was not my favorite rulebook, but I was able to figure it out once you set it all up on the table and just sort of walk through it as they suggest at the start. And I'll check to see in chat if anyone has any questions. Someone following along, that's great. So let me know if you have any questions about those two. Before I move on to some of the more advanced ones, I'm actually going to start with one of the newest ones that we just got in. It's called Red Cathedral from Devir. And this is, oh, I didn't tell you the price of Sylvian. It is $24.95. All right, back to this one, which is a smaller box than I thought it was, because whenever I see this on people's tables online before we ordered it, it was a big game, and it is. It is a lot of game into a tiny little box. Again, I don't really want to explain all the rules of the game, because here it's going to have two levels. You first have to learn how to play the game with 2 to 4 players. And here, I'll show you the board, though, because it's really cool. And it's not very big. It's quite pretty. So this, but I'll give you an overview, but then I'm going to talk in a little more detail about what's different in the solo versions. So again, let's see, I think I've got some pictures here. Okay, so this is Red Cathedral as it is set up for a 2-player game. And there is a center board where there's die. There's going to be a blue, white, yellow, green, red die. And then it's a little hard to see, but maybe I could show you. I have these pieces. There's going to be little symbols set up around each of those, in front of each of the sections where the die will be living. And then there are cards also around that outside that are going to be corresponding to 2 of the sections where the die are going to land. There are also 3 spots in each section, those little square ones, where the die can sit outside those circles. And the mechanics of the game to get the resources are the numbers on the die, or how far those die are going to advance around the circle. So if it's 5, you'd move it 5 sections around the board, and then wherever it stops, however many die are already in that section, you will get to multiply that by the number of resources pictured on the wheel token and take those resources from the supply. They do have great and wonderful little wooden resources. Again, tiny little box, but not tiny on components. These are little wood pieces. And you have a limit to how many you can store on your player board. Actually, double-sided player boards here. And at the start of the game, you actually have some banners that are blocking some spaces. These need to go out. I haven't talked about those yet, but for now, you would only have like 5 spaces to store resources, so you'd have to be careful about which ones you're collecting. And then you're going to use those resources to work. Oh, did I pull it up? My picture. There's a lot in those pictures. Let me see if I can show you another one. Well, that's a little bit of end game. I should have taken a picture sooner. Because those cards are actually going to have some resources on the top of them. You need to spend the resources in order to build the buildings. But first you will have to have claimed them with one of your flags, which is a whole other little thing. And once you have claimed it, then you're working towards building that. When you build it, you're going to get those little points there as well as the money. And then it's going to get flipped over and your flag remains on the board. And players are working towards building the cathedral sort of as a unit there with, there's a little card on the left-hand side. That's actually, you set up different configurations of towers based on the number of players. This was, again, for a 2-player game, which is the same for the solo version. And you're working to spend the resources, to flip the cathedral pieces, to build the cathedral, to claim them as finished, as well as decorate them. Possibly, you can see some of them have little windows on them, or there's even a green and blue door on the bottom. And those are going to be kind of area control at the end of the game. For each tower, you're going to see who has the most components, who has the most flags, doors, windows, crosses, and you'll divide up the points based on how tall the tower is. So each card is worth 2 points. Each decoration is worth 1 point. So taller towers with lots of decorations are going to be worth a lot of points. So people are going to be fighting over the ability to build there and decorate there, spending the resources that they got on the board. All right. Well, I promised I wouldn't go into too many details, but that is the essence of the game. Now, what is different in the solitaire game? Well, this is one where you have an AI opponent. And I think in this game it's Ivan. Seems appropriate for Red Cathedral, Russia. And Ivan is going to have these solitaire cards, which are included in the game. And they're going to be set up in randomized order. And at the bottom, there's different actions that correspond to the actions that you and other players would be taking in the regular game. And then there's also going to be these tokens which are out on the cathedral cards. Again, I'm not going to really get into it, but they're the different colored die, and they're going to go onto these cards. And you're going to move left to right. The die colored there will move the die in the center circle so they don't remain static, because that would be bad for you as a solo player if none of the die are moving except for you. But so the die will continue to move in the solo version, and then Ivan will take one of the actions as pictured on the bottom of the card. Now the actions are going to give points. They're going to help claim cathedrals for their color. That picture I showed you was actually at the end of the solitaire game that I played. And as well as but they don't actually have to collect specific resources. They can just take any. They don't have to, so you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what they're going to be doing. It kind of makes the actions for you very clear cut, but it does change what is happening both on the board as well as with the area control that you are fighting over. So it does keep it moving quite along, and it always blocks you because you're the only other player. So it's like, oh, they'll claim the tower that you're working on the most and go left from right if there's ties, and there's ways for you to help figure out this decision. So once you've read through all those rule sets and you understand the game and you're playing it, actually the AI turns are quite quick. They are complex, so there's quite a bit of rules to learn, so steep learning curve, but it is on the complexer end of the scale. So that is Red Cathedral, and that is out now from Devir Games. It is retails at only $34.95. Like I said, it is a tiny box with a ton of stuff inside, so it's got a ton of bang for the buck. And that is the first one of the three that are a little more advanced. So then I'm going to talk a bit about Tekhenu, which is the biggest one, biggest box anyway that I have, and probably the steepest learning curve. This is the one that's not that old. It's only been out for a couple months, and it's from Board and Dice. It retails at $59.95, and again, it'll be on sale this week. And it has quite a complex rule system. It has the largest board, like it's the size of this table. I thought about having it as the one that I displayed on my camera off to the side, but there's no way that I could show it to you and have everything be visible. So I will show you 1/4 of this giant board. It also comes with a obelisk that you have in the center. Oh, someone's asking which of the three do I like the most? Of the three that you've seen so far, I love Troya's Dice because I'm a huge fan of that world already, and I have played it a bunch because it takes 15 minutes. Sylvian I find hard. I keep it in my collection and I like to bring it out, but I'm not very good at it. And Red Cathedral was new to me. I only learned it this week, and I actually, to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to play it, but I was like, well, it's solo and I need some solo games and it's brand new, and it won me over, and I really want to play it more now, especially with more players. I did like the solo variant. I thought it, for an area control solo game, it handled that very well. Tekhenu I also liked, but it broke my brain because it took a long time to learn, but it was the most enriching of them, and it has a very unique solo experience, which I want to talk about. But this is 1/6 of the board. It expands to something that's like this big, so I can't unfold it. In the center is the obelisk, and it is going to have this little wheel around it. It has this nice little cheat sheet to remind you what the sections mean for the die that are going to be placed around them. I didn't know this till halfway through the game, and then I was like, oh, this is very handy. So for your first few games, you want to play with this setup. Then when you know what you're doing, you can put the prettier set on the board. And the obelisk is going to be rotating. It sits on a section of the board where the die are going to live around, and then you have a ton of rules that you need to learn, but really what's happening is you're going to take a colored die from a section, you're going to add it to your player board, which these are cool player boards, and it will be pure or it will be slightly tainted. They're also forbidden die, but they're forbidden, so you can't take them. But when you do take them, they're going to go on one side or the other, and ultimately you want your sides to be in balance every 4 rounds when a scoring happens, because it will affect, or not scoring, the intermediate mat phase, because it will affect your position in turn order, and also not affect you negatively. And then it also has these little places where you're going to have markers that are going to count up how many you have of certain things. So there's a little bit of accounting that happens on your player board, but really, again, you take a die, it has a color, it's in a section, and you do the action of the section that's in with the number that is on the die, or you can take the resources that were represented by the color of the die. That's pretty much it. It takes a lot longer to pick up as far as what you're doing, because I wish I could... well, I have a picture. It's not very close because I played this a couple weeks ago before I knew I was going to do this stream, so the picture isn't super great. It's an example of part of my table there with the centerpiece and the die around the obelisk and your player board out in front of you. And I should have zoomed in, but maybe I have another picture. Well, it's zoomed in on the same thing I can show you here in person. Neither of those help you. But around each of those sections in those circular areas, there's a symbol, a god symbol, and it represents that section of the board that you're going to then break out and work on that little, not mini game, but rules to the game that you're trying to, of course, get the most points. You're going to build statues to the gods, whether it be around that center area or off in that top corner area. That's the little, I think it's the marketplace. Or you're going to build, well, let me go back to this. You're going to build sections, I guess the temple, sections of the temple that you're going to then have your pillars on, which are those giant, the colors, the player colors in this game, I thought would look really terrible because they're like pink and purple, but they actually go really well. You're going to go out onto certain areas. You're trying to score points during the scoring phase by having certain things on the edge, which is another one of the god actions, separate from building inside the temple. There's ways for you to increase your happiness. There's population happiness track. You have to have certain levels in order to be taking certain cards. Some of the cards are going to help you in game, some of them are going to give you resources, and some of them are going to be end game scoring. All right, there's a lot of rules. Again, I'm not going to get into all of them, but what I did want to talk about, and I realized I did not get a good picture of here this morning, but the way the solo game works is you have these solo god tiles that have different actions or resources on them, and you're going to build a pyramid. So I think it's 4, 3, 2, 1 on your table with these pieces of the different actions in a pyramid form, and then you're going to have the name of the AI players, like an ancient Egyptian god whose name I cannot pronounce, but Botacommon or something. Anyway, he is going, or she is going to move this little scarab either over 1 or up 1. And that depends on which side this coin flips. So when you want to take their move, you actually flip the coin and it would move to the right. So that would be the action it would take this round. You look on the board. Again, it gives you a long, complex, detailed how to play. You got to get through those rules to get to the game. But when you do, their actions are going to be very streamlined for you. So there's not a lot of thinking once an action is chosen for you, because you're not that player, it's the AI. But why they choose what die they choose in front of some other die, or how they're going to use where they're going to place their temple stand within the marketplace or temple, and but that is all detailed in the rules. So once you read it and you move on this pyramid and you find what action, you kind of start to know, oh, it needs this die, which means this happens, end of their turn. Now I can go back to thinking about what I want to do. So you're spending more of your time engaging in what you're thinking about, how you want to interact with the game board, and how you can get the most points. I did lose this against the AI, but it wasn't by as much, like 40 points or so. So it was like some games, which I'll come to in just a second, where I might lose by 60 or more points. It felt a little bit more like I would, maybe if I played again soon. Again, it's new, so I've only played once as a solo. I haven't even, well, I guess I played once solo. And I really loved it and wanted to play again. I happened to have a headache when I did it, and probably because I read the rules, just kidding. So I didn't play again right away, but I really enjoyed the depth of it. Like it felt like I was giving myself a game night experience against a challenging opponent that was making reasonable decisions and not just erratic movements on the board. So that is Tekhenu. Again, it is $59.95. Will be on sale this week. Brand new game. So if you're looking for gifts for people that already have a ton of heavy strategic games, this is nice because they can play solo, but it's also meant for 2 to 4 players, I think. Alright, move this over here. I'm making a mess. I have one more to talk about, and then I'm going to do a quick one with the kids game. And this one is called Paladins of the West Kingdom. Now, I was very excited to possibly show you the new one, Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I was hoping I would have solo. I don't actually know. I'm going to look it up. It's coming out like this week. It's a trilogy that started with Architects of the West Kingdom, which was a game came out a couple years ago. I really love. It has also a great solo version that I've played a few times. And then Paladins, which was a fairly more intense game. It was like a lot more complex, which is the one I'm about to show you. Not as complex as Tekhenu. But nonetheless, so Paladins takes up a lot of room on your table. When I played with 4 players, we almost didn't have enough room on a big table. So it's maybe great for solitaire because it already almost takes up your entire table when you're playing solo. This is an example of the game set up for a solo game. There are these lovely little, oh yes, here we go. So it's got 2 long skinny centerboard pieces, and then every player board that you use in the normal game also comes with a solitaire version on the back. I'm not really sure why you need more than one, but maybe just for ease of printing. So you flip, you keep one regular side up, then you flip another one over so that you can use it for the solitaire board. And like the other 2 I've showed you, you go through all the rules of the game, and then you add in a secondary player, the AI, doesn't get a cool name. Then you have to take different actions for them. Now, I liked this one quite a bit because it does detail all of the different actions for you, so it's very easy to remember since they are these more complex set of rules on top of the regular game for playing solitaire. So it has all the iconography and everything you need to remember how to play. Now, again, I really didn't want to get into the full details of how to play, but with this game, ultimately what you're doing is you are trying to use your cards to get different colored peoples that will help you then take the actions, because a lot of them require specific colored peoples, and then you will be spending a certain something to gain something else, and there's a track on the other side of the board, so you have to have a certain amount of strength here to be able to take the action, which usually increases it in a different color. The center board is mostly where there's some card actions that come out increasingly each round, as well as a few special goodies that you can kind of fight over with your opponents, and then cards that are splayed out and have different prices and range in value and adjust throughout the game. But you're using those people, those workers, on specific locations to be able to take the actions either on your board to improve things, to get cards or resources. And then the AI version has a lot of that happening as well on their board, and they will have a special deck of cards. If you're familiar with Wingspan or a lot of the Stonemaier games, they kind of have those AI decks. I like Viticulture and Wingspan also have this mechanic where you have a deck of cards, and then on the AI's turn you flip it over. It's going to take a specific action, the King's Favor, or solve, or fortify, and you take that specific action, and it is all detailed on this board to remind you what you need to do in order to make that happen for this player. Now they're going to also have workers. They're going to get more workers at the start of each round automatically, just like you would, but they don't have a deck of cards, so you don't have to make decisions for them. The colors don't matter for the AI player, so you don't have to match certain things, but you have to have more of them and in volume of them as you play. So it uses this deck and the board to help you process all those complex decisions that you need to make to try to beat him. Now, this was the one that I found very hard. I thought the AI player was like watching somebody play a game that had played 25 times, and you're just new to the game and you have no idea what to do. And I've played a few times, but not solo, and I thought, I'm gonna have to try it again. So it was quite challenging if you're looking for a very advanced challenge, but you like this line of games from Renegade Games, the excuse me, and Garfield. I guess this is just Garfield. Oh no, we excuse me. That's how I know it. I'm talking too much. Clearly. Great. I'm just gonna musical interlude. I wish I had music, but I don't. Take a look at these cards. Okay. I think I'm not dying anymore. So those are the complex, puzzly solitaire games that you can pick up this week. Paladins is $49.95. Has a ton of stuff packed into that box. Smaller box, also a lot of bang for your buck. But I like to do a family game each week, and there's not a ton of like solitaire games for kids because they can do puzzles and games and play games, make up the rules on their own. But there is Think Fun Games, which if you're not familiar with them, they do a lot of solitaire puzzly things for kids, like Rush Hour, the one where you're moving the cars. That's their most famous one. Well, I have Dog Crimes here for you today, and you're gonna watch me try to solve these logic puzzles in real time. So this is for one player. You have this lovely family of dogs here. We have Cider, Beans, Ace, Daisy, Suzette, and Pepper. I wonder if I have their names. Oh, I see. If you rotate them, you can see their names better. Okay. So, it comes with a stack of cards. There's going to be beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And the way it works, like a lot of Think Fun games, is you're going to have the basic components set up. And this is who tore up the pillow. So I'm looking, oh, okay, I got to find the pillow. So we know what we're trying to figure out is which dog tore up this pillow. And you're given a few clues with this one. So like those logic puzzles where you used to draw grids and things, you're going to write, instead of writing, you're going to have pieces that you can manipulate and move around the board. So you're not going to need these in this one. And we're going to look here. We're going to say, okay, Beans was sitting in front of the homework. So Beans is going to come over here. this section is considered in front of the homework, kind of looking at this side. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations, as well as different things that are sometimes duplicated, so it can be tricky. All right, so Beans is sitting in front of the homework. Then we have Ace is sitting across from Beans. Oh, sad, you can't see Ace. There's Ace. Daisy is sitting to Ace's right. Now you're thinking about Ace as he is looking at the table, so if it's to his right, it's going to be over here. Of course, after my coughing fit, we have the dump truck in the alley, so I apologize for the noise. We have Daisy sitting to the Ace's right. Cider is sitting in front of a rawhide. Well, it can't be this rawhide because that's where Daisy is sitting. So then I think it has to be this one. So that's going to be Cider. And then Suzette was sitting next to Cider. Well, he can't sit this way next to him because there's already somebody there, Beans. So Suzette is going to sit here. And then that leaves Pepper. Looks like Pepper chewed up the pillow. So then you can flip over the card. It'll give you the answers. It shows you where all the dogs are placed. And again, this was the beginner one for learning how to play the game. The first few will probably prove pretty easy. As it goes on, some of them, it's so loud, I'm sorry. Some of them are going to be, it'll say like, oh, they're sitting, they were playing in the yard, which means they wouldn't be included in this round. So you know that there's a fewer people to work with, but that leaves more spaces open. So it's harder to figure out perhaps who goes where, because you have to then go through all of the different clues. Now, I said I was going to try to do one of these intermediate ones here on camera. I'm going to give it 2 minutes, and if I can't figure it out and this track is still loud, we're going to call it a day. All right, so this is Who Broke the Flower Pot, and you can help me out. A hard one? You want a hard one? All right. We have a quest for a hard one. Since I have a follower, I'm going to go with it. We're not going to do expert because that's embarrassing and I will not be able to I probably can't figure out advanced, to be perfectly honest. All right, we're going to do advanced. All right, who ruined the shoes? All right, a dog with a bandana was sitting in front of the homework. All right, so we have Ace and we have Daisy. They have a bandana. Oh my goodness. Again, so sorry, this dump truck is so loud. Okay. Dog with the bandana is sitting in front of the homework. So I'm not sure who's going to be sitting there, but it's one of those two. Dog that wears a collar was sitting in front of the cake. So we've got some dogs with collars in front of a cake. Ace was sitting next to Suzette. Well, I don't know if that means if Suzette's not in front of the cake or if Ace isn't in front of the homework. I'm not sure. Suzette was sitting 3 seats from Beans. So you're going to count those as 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. And the Beans is on neither end, so it's probably not Suzette that's sitting next to the cake. Perhaps, because Beans can't be here. So I'm going to put... Suzette is sitting here or here. I don't know how to indicate that. Yes. I have also played a Logic Puzzles. Usually I don't jump to the advanced rounds, so if you're watching, and yes, it is a cool implementation for families and kids, and I probably should start at the beginning and refresh my memory. Okay, we got Beans. I don't know where Beans is. It doesn't say him, but that he's still there unless it says he's in the yard. Daisy was not sitting in front of a rawhide. Okay, well, I mean, she could still be in front of the homework. All right, well, Pepper is sitting next to Cider's right. So I'm going to say it's here. I don't know. Dog with the bandana sitting in front of the homework. Dog that wears a collar. I'm saying it's Cider. We're going to go with Cider. In front of the cake. Suzette was sitting 3 seats from Beans. Oh, so 1. Oh, no. I still don't know. Daisy was not sitting in front of Rawhide. That's not Rawhide. So that would still be true. Suzette. Three seats from B. No, it's, oh shoot. This is Daisy. This is Suzette. No! Beans has to be 3 seats from... Friends, you wanted to see an advanced one, and I promised my followers on Twitter that I would fail at a logic puzzle in real time. Well, there I failed, so unless someone wants to chime in the chat, I'm going to call it a day, because I don't want to embarrass myself any further. What's the answer? Oh, it's Daisy in front of the home. Oh, I wasn't close. I wasn't close. So that was who ruined the shoes. I was also supposed to put this out so we could remember that we were trying to figure out who ate the shoes. What a naughty dog. Someone says this is great entertainment. Well, it's COVID times, and so no apologies. I've been sitting in my house for 8 months. Yes, awesome times. So I think we're done here. That is Dog Crimes, and it's from Think Fun. And we do have it in shop, and you will get a discount on it. It's only $14.99 normally. Clearly, I need to keep it here and work on these starting at the beginning and moving my way up to retrain my brain. Well, thank you for joining me. It looks like I had a couple followers this week, which is great. Again, this has been Solitaire Games with Amanda, and I know some of you out there are probably at home alone as well, and so these are great games to play if you want to get a full game night experience or just challenge your brain to some things that they need to clearly work on, such as logic. All right, thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day.